Stepdad takes my mom and his kids on vacation without telling me, leaving me alone. When I leave to stay with my dad, everything spirals out of control. I'm a 17-year-old girl currently in high school. My mom, who's 41, got married to her husband, Alex, 2 years ago. For context, my dad and mom had me during their early 20s, following a short-lived relationship that ended amicably. They share custody of me, and I alternate between their homes every few weeks. Both my parents have been great in ensuring that I've felt loved and supported. Despite their busy lives, they've always lived in the same city to make my transitions easier. Mom's remarriage, however, hasn't been easy for me. Alex, her new husband, is 43 and has 2 daughters, ages 13 and 10. I've tried my best to be open to the changes, but Alex has made it abundantly clear that he doesn't like me. It's not that he's overtly rude or hostile, he just completely ignores me. He doesn't speak to me or acknowledge my presence. And unfortunately, his daughters have adopted the same attitude. My mom claims Alex needs time to adjust, since he hasn't been in a step-parenting situation before, but this has been going on for years now. When Alex first started dating my mom, he seemed friendly. We had a few polite conversations, and I thought we'd get along fine. But after a few visits, he abruptly stopped interacting with me altogether. I'd walk into a room, and he'd leave or pretend I wasn't there. When I asked my mom about it, she insisted I hadn't done anything wrong, saying Alex was just reserved. It didn't make sense to me then, and it still doesn't now. A year into their relationship, Alex proposed. Shortly after they got married, Alex and his daughters moved into our house. That's when things became unbearable. Living in the same house as people who pretend you're invisible is emotionally draining. Every time I go to my mom's, I'd have to prepare myself to feel like a ghost in my own home. My mom would reassure me that Alex and his kids were trying, but it didn't feel that way. The breaking point came recently. One weekend, my mom and Alex decided to take a family trip to Niagara Falls with his daughters. The problem? They didn't tell me. I found out when I came home from school to an empty house. My mom left a note saying they'd be gone for a week and expected, and me to stay home and watch the house. No heads up, no conversation, nothing. I was livid. I tried calling my mom, but she ignored my calls. Feeling hurt and abandoned, I packed my things and went to stay with my dad. He was shocked and furious when I told him what happened. He reassured me that I could stay with him for as long as I needed and even called my mom to confront her. She didn't take it well. 5 days later, my mom finally called, but it wasn't to check on me. She was screaming, accusing me of being irresponsible because the house had been broken into while they were away. A few items were stolen, including their TV, and she blamed me entirely. She said I should have stayed and that leaving the house unattended was reckless. I reminded her that I'd tried to call and let her know I was leaving, but she'd ignored me. Her response? You could have texted? That argument escalated quickly. My mom insisted I owed her an apology and claimed I was selfish for abandoning the house. I stood my ground, telling her that leaving me alone without even informing me wasn't fair, and any consequences were her responsibility, not mine. Alex also jumped in, berating me and making some vague comment about how I'd always been a problem. I could surely just give Alex a pass for treating me the way he did and just deal with it for my mom's sake. I wanted to argue with her, but I didn't want to hurt her feelings. I never even told my dad about any of this because I knew he would be furious. If he found out, he'd definitely confront my mom, and their already rocky relationship would get worse. They're very different people with completely opposite ideas about parenting. They've always had small disagreements, but something this big could make my dad fight for full custody. I didn't want to stir up unnecessary drama, so I pretended everything was fine with my mom and Alex. Alex and my mom dated for about a year before getting married, and now it's been 2 years of them living together. That means I've endured Alex's cold behavior for 3 long years. But something happened recently that pushed me past my breaking point. Last month, I was staying at my mom's house for my scheduled time. And as usual, Alex and his daughters were ignoring me. I was already going through a rough patch. Because I'd been fighting with a few friends from school, so my mental health wasn't great. Then 2 weeks ago, I woke up one morning and realized the house was completely empty. The night before, everything had seemed normal, at least as normal as things get in that house. Alex and his daughters were chatting among themselves and ignoring me like always. But there was no mention of any plans to leave. So waking up to an empty house shocked me. I immediately called my mom, and thankfully, she answered. When I asked her where they were, she casually said they were on a week-long trip and told me to stay home and take care of the house. I'm on summer break, so I don't have school or anywhere urgent to be. But it felt wildly inappropriate for her to leave me home alone without even asking. I told her I wasn't comfortable being left behind to watch the house like some kind of security guard. If she wanted that, she should have arranged for better home security instead of tricking me into staying. More than anything, I was upset that they hadn't even told me they were leaving. It felt disrespectful. I probably would have agreed to stay if she had asked me. It's not like most high schoolers would say no to an empty house. I might have even invited friends over to hang out. But the way she handled it hurt. Adding to everything, I was still fighting with my friends. So I didn't even have anyone to invite over. I told my mom that she owed me an apology for leaving me behind without any warning. I understood Alex didn't like talking to me, but the least they could have done was inform me. Instead, I woke up to an empty house, which felt awful. She brushed me off, saying I was making a big deal out of nothing and needed to move on. Then she hung up on me before I could respond. When I tried calling back, she ignored my calls and texted that she'd talk later. Once they got to the hotel, that was the final straw for me. I decided I wasn't going to put up with it anymore. I knew leaving would mean the house was unattended, but I didn't care. I tried calling my mom one last time to let her know I was leaving, but she didn't answer and my call went straight to voicemail. So I locked the house, placed the key under a potted plant, where my mom usually hides it, and left for my dad's house. When I arrived, my dad was surprised to see me so early. I was supposed to stay with my mom for another week. He asked what was wrong, and I finally told him everything. I explained how Alex had trained his daughters to ignore me, how he refused to speak to me for no apparent reason, and how my mom allowed it all to continue without addressing it. I told him about the trip, how they didn't tell me, and how my mom dismissed my feelings when I confronted her. Hearing all this, my dad was livid. He said my mom's behavior was unacceptable and that Alex's actions were ridiculous. My dad has always been protective of me, so learning how my mom and Alex had been treating me really upset him. He assured me that he'd take steps to address the situation, including possibly adjusting the custody arrangement. At that point, I realized I'd done the right thing by telling him. For years, I tolerated everything for my mom's sake. She'd often remind me of all the sacrifices she made for me, guilt-tripping me into putting up with Alex's behavior. But I've had enough. I don't care about her excuses anymore. I needed to prioritize my own well-being. Staying quiet was no longer an option. My dad deserves to know what's been going on, and I'm ready to stand up for myself. When I've done nothing to upset anyone and always tried my best to be kind and understanding, it was hard to comprehend what was happening. I told my dad about how my mom left me at home alone without even telling me that Alex and his kids were going out. She expected me to stay home and take care of the house, living on my own for a week while they went on a trip. That wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was that she didn't think it was important to tell me. When I tried to talk to her, she ignored my calls and hung up on me like I wasn't even important to her. She crossed a line and I couldn't stand it anymore. After venting to my dad about everything, I broke down in tears. I hadn't realized just how heavy all of this had been on me for so long. Before my mom got together with Alex, we had a normal relationship, but everything changed once they were together. I felt invisible to her, and that was hard for me to accept. After I finished telling my dad everything, he simply told me he would handle it from here. He was clearly upset, but he didn't say anything harsh to me. He just told me he was glad I confided in him. He said I'd be staying with him from now on, and if I wanted to return to my mom's. That was my choice, but he didn't recommend it. So I moved in with him, and I didn't call my mom after that. The strange part was that she didn't try to contact me either. She could have at least checked in, but she didn't. After about 5 days with no contact, she finally called. I thought maybe she was calling to apologize or check in on me. But when I answered, she was screaming at me. It took me a second to realize that she was blaming me for the robbery. That happened while they were gone. They had left some expensive things at home, and now they were gone. She was furious and somehow thought I was responsible. I didn't know why she was blaming me, because I tried to call her and inform her I was leaving. After she stopped yelling, I calmly explained that I wasn't happy with how she treated me, and I had tried to contact her several times after she hung up, but she kept declining my calls. She told me I could have texted her, and while that was a valid point, I reminded her I didn't want to. I was upset. It seemed obvious that I was angry, and she shouldn't have expected me to stay behind. We got into a huge argument because she believed I should have stayed home, no matter how upset I was, since it was a matter of safety. But I didn't ask for that responsibility. I tried to make it clear I didn't want to stay home alone, but she ignored me. Now, she was facing the consequences of her own actions, not mine. The ridiculous part was that Alex got involved too. The first time he spoke to me in years was only to yell at me and blame me for the situation. He said some odd things, like he always knew I'd ruin everything for them. I had no idea what he meant, since we don't even talk. I don't understand how he could come to that conclusion without even speaking to me. Now my parents are fighting. My dad thinks my mom is at fault, and I do too, but she's blaming me. My mom is demanding that my dad pay for the damages, claiming if he's defending me, he should cover the cost. I'm stuck in the middle. She's saying she'd drop everything if I just apologize to her and her family. But I don't want to apologize for leaving her house. I don't want to keep causing issues for my dad either. Am I wrong for leaving my mom's house to go stay with my dad after she left me alone, without informing me to go on a trip with her new family? Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since the incident, and a lot has come to light. I finally found out why Alex hated me so much. Apparently, when they first started dating, Alex asked my mom if his ailing mother could move in with them. My mom refused because she wasn't comfortable with it. She didn't want the extra responsibility of caring for his mother, even though Alex said she had a full-time nurse. My mom wasn't ready for them to move in together, and she didn't want the added burden of his mother, so she turned him down. Instead of being upfront with him about her reasons, she kept quiet. She pinned it all on me, and this was about 3 months into their relationship. Things were getting serious between them, though I thought it was too soon. But that was my mom's choice, and I wasn't going to comment on it. She basically lied to Alex, telling him she was fine with him moving in with her and bringing his mother and kids along. But she wasn't sure if it was a good idea because of me. She made me sound like a troublemaker, telling him that all her past boyfriends had been driven away because of me. Apparently, I terrorized her boyfriends because I wanted to protect her and still believed I could fix her relationship with my dad. She didn't want to break my heart, and she didn't want Alex's mom to suffer because of me. She told Alex that I had said his mother was a burden and that if she moved in, I would make her life miserable. This was a complete lie because I would never say anything like that. I also never called his kids evil goblins, as she claimed. Alex believed her though, even though I always acted normal around him. I found out a couple of days ago that he had been pushing my mom to disown me, thinking it was time to cut all ties with me. But she didn't want to do that, so she finally came clean to him. Now they're living separately because he couldn't believe he had treated me so badly based on lies my mom had fed him. He even wrote me an email apologizing for how he treated me, saying he would have understood if my mom had been honest about not wanting to take in his sick mother. He would have worked something out with his sister instead. But because my mom lied, Alex kept mistreating me, and now he feels guilty. I haven't replied to his email yet because I'm not sure how to feel. I just need to keep my head clear for now. It turns out my mom had been allowing Alex to treat me poorly, and it worked out in her favor. She fed him lies about how I was always in trouble at school, and Alex never questioned it because he trusted her. He didn't know that I was actually just a normal kid. My dad has decided to file for full custody after learning all of this, and my mom is devastated. She claims she wanted us to be a happy family, but how could she expect that while ruining my life? Update 2. Not only is my dad filing for custody, but Alex has filed for divorce. My mom sent my dad frantic messages, begging him to fix things with Alex. She said she couldn't live without us. But I don't see how she expects anyone to forgive her after what she did. For years, I wondered why Alex hated me and why his kids were so cold toward me, only to find out it was because of my mom's lies. I've blocked her everywhere and don't want to speak to her again. I put up with so much because I loved her and wanted her to be happy. But it's clear she didn't feel the same way about me. Update 3. It's official. Alex has filed for divorce. Everyone in my family and even my parents' mutual friends are talking about it. My mom's reaction? Posting sad quotes on social media. My cousins keep sending me screenshots, but honestly, I couldn't care less. She made her bed and now she has to lie in it. Update 4. My dad now has full custody of me. The case dragged on for a couple of months. But in the end, my mom didn't stand a chance. Between the divorce and all the evidence we had, it was clear what she'd put me through. She still has visitation rights, but I don't see the point. I don't want to talk to her anymore. Life with my dad is going well. I've reconnected with friends and am finally looking forward to moving on.